Today's video dedication is for Whiskey Jack. Tomik, Wielder of Law versus Krenko, Be'lakor and Liliana. Decided to try this one again, see if we have better luck this time. We don't have any ramp there and only 2 lands effectively, so let's mulligan. Okay, we're going to empty that hand quite quickly, but we can at least do something in the early game, so we'll keep it. Turn 1 mana crypt from Liliana allows the commander into play straight away, or a Dark Confidant, a means of refilling the hand over the next few turns. And Urborg from the Grixis player on turn 1. Alright, getting into all the 2 mana rocks. Getting bolted by the mana crypt, and we're about to see a card from Dark Confidant, see how much life he loses. Losing 6 life to Mikaeus the Unhallowed, so turn 2 and he's already down to 31. So deciding to get down the commander now. Oh, it's double black, so couldn't have got it off the mana crypt. And then Krenko taking a hit to the Confidant. Idol of Oblivion for the Goblin player. Going to be making plenty of tokens in that deck, of course. Alright, a Field of the Dead. Could have done with that a turn sooner, but we'll manage to get it out at some point. Just play the Orzhov Signet. Seeing a Liliana's Triumph this time. Down to 26 life. Must have taken a bolt again. Got to be very careful playing Dark Confidant. If you've got a very low curve, 1s and 2s in your mana pool, then fair enough, but yeah, pretty risky when you've got stuff like Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Oftentimes you will hit lands off it though. A Blood Pet smells like a combo piece. And then a Demonic Tutor. So I'll be tempted to go for Anguished Unmaking onto the Mana Crypt next turn. Damage from the Dark Confidant into us, a Lifelinker to the right. Rhystic Study from the Demon player. Ruby Medallion, the first piece of ramp from Krenko. And see if he plays anything else, or if he goes for the Rhystic Study tax. Not paying the tax. He's more eager to get out a Skirk Prospector with no goblins in play. Yeah, I think I'd rather have paid the tax than give him 2 card draw and get this out. This is just going to sit here for a few turns now. Alright, an Ancient Tomb for us. Luckily the black mana is fixed over here. Otherwise we're not having too much luck on that front, so we play Talisman. Pay the tax, and then play Arcane Signet and pay the tax. Fine. Obviously decided against going for the Anguished Unmaking now. And if our opponents decide to consistently not pay for Rhystic Study, then I'll stop paying it as well. Just taking 1 to the Dark Confidant with a Reanimate. Alright, I'm guessing he tutored for a Skull Clamp, so throwing that down. Clamping the Blood Pet to draw 2 cards. And that triggers the Liliana as well, because a creature has died, so exile this, then return it to the battlefield as a Planeswalker. And now it is a +2 on this. Each player discards a card. So I think we'll risk getting rid of a Plains here, because I do want to keep hold of Field of the Dead. Discarded over here is a Phyrexian Arena. Throwing out Sensei's Divining Top now. Paying the tax. Skull Clamp onto the zombie token that was made by Lily. Herald's Horn. So Krenko Mob Boss coming into play here will not have haste. Only going to cost 3 mana and paying into the tax this time. So again, Skirk Prospector just sitting there for no reason seemingly. Really, really good card this, and I wouldn't risk just having it out when you've got nothing to do with it. Alright, awesome. There is a Swords to Plowshares. Do we leave Krenko alone for now? Depends on what he gets into, I suppose. I think we're fine to throw out the Tomik here. Pay into the Rhystic Study tax for Tomik, and then we're going to have to... yeah, I think I do want to hurt the mana of the mono black player. I'm hoping that we can go for Blackblade Reforged onto our commander and deal with this next turn. Does mean that we're not going to have access to the Swords to Plowshares though. Let's go for Field of the Dead into play. Or we could go after the Skull Clamp instead. Skull Clamp is really good. Yeah, I think I will go after that actually. The fast mana making it difficult in typical EDH fashion. So not going to be able to pay the Rhystic Study tax for the first time. But I think it's worth getting rid of Clamp. And haven't seen a single Planeswalker yet, annoyingly. Now we just have to try and dodge the Liliana's Triumph that we know our opponent has in hand. I'm going down to 17, revealing a Sheoldred this time. Each player discards a card. We're going to have to make it the Swords to Plowshares, unfortunately. And then Reanimate is going on to the Sheoldred after it was discarded to the Lily. Kindred Discovery discarded here, and a land for Krenko. So he's going to go down to 10 here. Spinning Sensei's Divining Top, and then taps the Sensei's Divining Top to draw the top card of his library. See a Phyrexian Tower being played, sacrificing the Dark Confidant to that. Allows him into Yawgmoth Ram Physician. Does not pay the tax, so wants to continue to hold this up as we keep saying. So getting rid of the Skirk Prospector after it does absolutely nothing with the Yawgmoth Ram Physician. And there we see the Triumph, so getting rid of both the commanders. And going to draw a card for the Demon player again. Down to 9 life over here though. Okay, now it's saying that the Krenko player is disconnected, so hopefully he's not just scooped on us. Didn't exactly help himself there. Yep, of course he does. At the first sign of adversity. So I think that is worth a ban. And we even have to discard the Blackblade Reforged as well, so officially empty-handed. Need to get into a Necropotence or something. Would have had to sacrifice it to the Sheoldred anyway though. A Balor is the first demon to come in for the Grixis player. Whenever it attacks or dies, choose 1 or more. Target opponent draws 3, discards 3 at random. Target opponent sacks a non-token artifact, or it deals damage to an opponent equal to the number of cards in their hand. Alright, so there's almost no point in even playing out our commander here if it's just going to go down to the Sheoldred. A Trouble in Pairs is at least a means of card draw, so we'll certainly throw that out straight away. And I'm purposely not going to pay the tax here, even though we can afford it, because it'll up the chances of double spells into Trouble in Pairs, but also allow him into more means of getting rid of the black player, hopefully. The Balor isn't going to do anything at the moment, as long as Sheoldred stays in play. But obviously it has death triggers, so we'll be able to point a bit of damage over here. Hoping for a Lightning Bolt from the Crypt. Does not get bolted, reanimates Blood Pet with the Sheoldred. And then going for Proliferate, so that's just a means of discard. And it is -8 on this, get an emblem. Whenever a creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the end step. So managing to get the emblem on Liliana over here. And discarded the Sensei's Divining Top to do that. He drew into that this turn. A Blood Artist with 3 cards left in hand now. Did not pay for the tax. So sacrifice the Blood Pet for mana now, and that will come straight back thanks to the emblem. Sacrificing the Blood Artist as well. And Blood Artist pointed at the Grixis player. And Liliana being played out again, so we draw into Smothering Tithe, so yeah, the other half of, not a cycle, but the 4 mana mono white enchantments that are really, really good. 1 for card draw, 1 for ramping, obviously. Unfortunately, Smothering Tithe not going to do a whole lot for us. And Swamp Walk, very effective thanks to the Urborg that is in play. So we get the Yawgmoth, the Sheoldred, go straight through. So we need to hope for a double spell from Grixis in order to actually have half a chance of getting into something. So now sacrificing the Sheoldred to the Liliana. And it's going to be flip round into the Defiant Necromancer again, so we're not even going to keep the Smothering Tithe. Unless we decide that we want to go for the Stroke of Midnight onto something. Getting rid of their sack outlet's probably going to be a good idea. Let's get rid of the Smothering Tithe. Maybe blowing up Sheoldred? If they hadn't just got the emblem, we've got Stroke of Midnight just too late. If we could keep Sheoldred out of play, then it would keep the Balor in play, and that could keep swinging in over here. So Sheoldred going to trigger because it is back in play along with all the other stuff, and we'll trigger the Blood Artist. Liliana is, well, the emblem is going to make sure that the dragon comes into play over here. And Balor is pointed at us. It'll be pointed at both of us. I don't know which one's which here. Yeah, so I don't actually know which one we're supposed to be targeted with here. We have to sacrifice a non-token artifact, I'm guessing, and the damage is dealt to this player. Yeah, that's annoying, so we have to go down some mana. Lightning Greaves is a means of haste, so can they get into a 5 mana demon and swing some damage in over here? They're going to have a, I think I said dragon before, they're going to have a demon in the way in the form of a flyer, unfortunately. But another spell here to draw us is good against the Liliana. Okay, a Blood Gift Demon draws us a card, and it can actually ping your opponent if you want it to. A Farewell is very nice. That is a means of exile. So we could go for Stroke of Midnight at the end step so that the Yawgmoth doesn't come back. Not in time to respond to the Farewell anyway. And then exile all this stuff. Alright, so sacrificing Blood Pet to the Yawgmoth in response. Gonna try and get rid of this thing straight away, it looks like. And obviously the things are going to come back in with Liliana's emblem. He draws cards, he pings with the Blood Artist. It's rinse and repeat really at this point. And Trouble in Pairs will draw us again. Haven't seen anyone else playing this card yet on Magic Online, but well worth it. A Primeval's Glorious Rebirth is from your graveyard, so not much use to us. Amazingly, haven't got into any Planeswalkers. Managed to kill off the Bloodgift Demon with the Yawgmoth. They have 7 cards in hand and 8 life. But hopefully we're going to be able to deal with that Blood Artist. So we'll go through to the end step, wait for all these triggers to go onto the stack. So there is the emblem triggers, meaning that we now have chance to blow up the Yawgmoth before the things come back into play. So let's go Stroke of Midnight onto Yorgs. Pay the tax now that Be'lakor has haste in the form of Lightning Greaves. And then Liliana going to bring everything back into play. So grabs the Bloodgift Demon, the Blood Pet, the Blood Artist, the Balor, Sheoldred, and we have to sacrifice our non-existent creature at the beginning of our turn. And there's an Ugin, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we had the Signet that we were forced to sacrifice previously, then we could have gone for Ugin, but yeah, that would have meant losing out on the Trouble in Pairs, which I don't think I'm ready for yet. And I imagine we'll lose Ugin straight away to a Demon, so yeah, even though the Demon should be swinging in over here, I think we might be able to manage to deal with this player. We'll go for exiling all creatures and graveyards. I want to keep my artifacts and enchantments, so we'll leave those alone. And again, we'll have to take life to the Ancient Tombs so that we can pay the tax. And now that our opponent doesn't have the Yawgmoth in play anymore, he can't do a load of sacrifice shenanigans. And even the graveyard isn't safe, so he would have reanimated the Yawgmoth at the end of the turn there, but it has now been thrown into the exile zone because we went after the graveyards. Not out of the woods yet. This player has a decent amount of mana still and 7 cards in hand, but we've got discard fodder in the form of Primeval's Glorious Rebirth. Although we could go for discarding the Ugin and reanimate it with this next turn. Goes down to 5 on the Mana Crypt. Doesn't have his Blood Artist anymore. Plays out Tergrid. So now we're going to have to be careful what we discard. We assume that he's going to go for the Liliana +2. Pays for the Rhystic Study. Yeah, I was actually going to go for discarding the Ugin there so that we could rely on not getting into a land for this, but definitely going to discard the Primeval's Glorious Rebirth now. This assumes that we're not going to be forced to discard something else though. That will entail our opponent playing another spell though, I imagine, so Trouble in Pairs will come into play again. A Reflections of Lityara will trigger, or Tergrid will trigger, and grab the Reflections. Names human with that, so has a decent number of humans in the list. See if we can be forced to discard here. Okay, it's a Diabolic Intent. So Trouble in Pairs draws us, and that is a Batwing Broom, which is of little to no use to us. Paying into the Rhystic Study again. So what can he do with no mana? Probably, knowing this deck, he probably goes for a Snuff Out, or I think there's a better version of Snuff Out that exiles. So he probably goes for that in response to a Lightning Greaves. Don't think my opponent has revealed a single card off the Herald's Horn yet. This is why I'd always rather play the Urza's Incubator than this, because it gives a better discount. Okay, Speak of the Devil, seeing a Rakshasa now. No cards in the graveyards. So if we do manage to get out Ugin next turn, do we just go for a Lightning Bolt onto our opponent? A Herald of Slanesh. Makes demons cost 2 less and gives other demons haste. So his demons are going to cost 3 less in total. There is a Be'lakor. We'll draw another card from the enchantment. And damage will be dealt by Be'lakor here as well. So that actually makes the Ugin more relevant. And there is more reanimation in Triumphant Reckoning. Drawing into things in all the wrong order here, unfortunately. But we're getting steps closer to a land. Trouble in Pairs drawing again from the Be'lakor's Resolution. And there's a Sol Ring, so that's some additional mana, gets us into the Ugin. Lightning Greaves here to see if he can swing in for victory. Okay, did not manage to get into some free spot removal, so we have to assume that Be'lakor is going to finish it off here. Okay, and then risking a misclick from the black player. Giving him a chance here. It might be that he misclicked through his turn and actually does have removal for Be'lakor, but throwing it onto the haste enabler. So yeah, you would assume that that would finish him off, giving us a couple of damage as well. And Trouble in Pairs is going to become even more relevant as the demons have to start swinging in at us. Alright, managing to take him out. Yeah, so I'm not particularly interested in who wins at this point, as long as we manage to solve that puzzle. That was quite a fun one in the end. Protecting Be'lakor with the Lightning Greaves. Alright, there is an Ajani Steadfast. So if we can get a couple of Planeswalkers into the bin ready for this, it's going to make it more relevant. We definitely want the Sol Ring in play. And then we've got 6, 7, 8 mana left after that. The Ugin is going to get 6 damage dealt to it. So it'll be on 3 loyalty, but we could blow this thing up, which is well worth doing, I think. So not paying the tax is the thing to do here, annoyingly. And if they do take down Ugin, then we've got the reanimation, like I've said. So yeah, it would be ideal that we could hold up the Batwing Broom, but we can maybe get that going after the mass reanimation. So our opponent's drawn 2 cards off us here with the Rhystic Study, but that means that we draw another one with Trouble in Pairs, so a land would be okay. Still no land. Haven't drawn into a swamp the entire game. We will get rid of their cost reducer. Obviously I'd go for the minus here, like -6, but don't want to lose out on this. This is doing a whole heap of work for us. Drew into a Gatewatch Beacon, by the way. So we'll protect our life total, assuming that the Be'lakor is going to go in at Ugin. And if 2 demons swing in, then Trouble in Pairs will trigger. Alright, our opponent has Urza's Incubator as well, so was going to get some very cheap demons into play if we hadn't got rid of this, but forcing them to use 3 of their mana, so they could afford a 6-drop here. Now it's Blood Crusher of Khorne. Other creatures you control have trample. Okay. A Grateful Apparition for us is next to useless, especially with the creature that's just entering now. Although we could get it into play next turn and then make use of the Batwing Broom to knock Summoning Sickness off that and do some Proliferate. I doubt it'll be relevant, but that's something we could do. Damage being dealt with the Be'lakor straight to the Ugin. So that goes down to 6 and then can be knocked out with this most likely. Okay, manages to get another demon into play, so if an opponent would gain life, loses that much life instead, that is actually relevant with our commander. Or in this deck, I mean, like we've got stuff like lifelink on this. Alright, so then it's 3 damage onto us. Yeah, I might have been tempted to go 3 damage onto Ugin. Swing in at Ugin with this, or this has, yeah, with this. And then it could have been commander damage onto us, but either or, it's fine. I mean, it's not really commander damage we're worried about at the moment, I don't think. Might be time to give up on the Trouble in Pairs. We've had our opponent dedicate quite a bit to the board here. We could buy ourselves a bit more time with the Batwing Broom though, I think. So yeah, Be'lakor takes out Ugin. We get 3 damage from the other demon. So down goes Ugin, we go down to 13. Lightning Greaves back onto the Be'lakor. And let's see what we draw into here. Bet it's not a land. Austere Command. Austere Command on big creatures works. How much mana do we have? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we could go for a little bit of mana into the Austere Command and just name creatures. They do have haste on 1 creature. They'll be able to get down multiple creatures, but haste on only 1 of them, hopefully. Yeah, we're fighting a losing battle here. We'll just have to try it. And we're going to have to not pay into the tax as well, unfortunately, because our mana hasn't been the greatest this game. Just a case of seeing how long you can survive here, really. So, could pay the tax on the Rhystic Study here, but I'd rather just go Austere Command and have more life to take damage to the hasty creatures that are going to come in. So, big creatures, small creatures, so that we don't have to lose our artifacts or Trouble in Pairs. Noteworthy that when we reanimate the Ugin and go for the minus, it's going to take this out with it. Drawn into a Tevesh Sat, Doom of Fools, so don't know if we're going to survive long enough, but we're eventually starting to get somewhere. Like I said before, we've just drawn into it all in the wrong order, unfortunately. 4 lands by turn 8. If we had more lands, I'd have been more tempted to go for artifacts there, big creatures and artifacts, and then they would have had a lot less mana to play with. Down comes the Be'lakor again, so likely going to get down another demon into that and deal more damage to us. We draw into Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. Can't play this, unfortunately. And it's Lightning Greaves onto the Be'lakor. And plays in its Signet to draw us again. There's a Toxic Deluge with little to no life. So with 8 cards in hand, he could just take us out with the commander alone. So actually, Toxic Deluge might be worth it, because we can only rely on Batwing Broom to protect us with combat damage. Alright, Teferi's Protection. We just keep managing to draw the game out, seemingly. So then 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana if we want it. I think we are best making them recast their Be'lakor though. but that means that we go down to 2, or we could try and litter the board with as much as possible, and then it's Teferi's Protection, but I don't know what relevance that's going to be. So we could try getting this down and then Ajani and Lifelink, just to attempt to keep ourselves in it. And if we only play our commander, it's noteworthy we can discard Tevesh Sat to hand size, so that it's something we can reanimate. I mean, it's not ideal, is it? But if that's what we have to do here. So then Hold Up Batwing Broom is these two, or these two. And then we've still got white for Teferi's Protection, so no. Hopefully not going to need Batwing Broom and Teferi's Protection in one turn, but Mystic Study being in play all game has really changed things up for our opponent. So let's discard the Tevesh Sat to hand size. Or is Ajani going to be more useful to us against flyers? Means that we don't have to cast it next turn and we can reanimate Ugin and the Ajani so that we can put Lifelink on the Tomik. Yeah, I'll discard Ajani. This can also put a loyalty counter on Ugin, so it comes in with 7, it'll get 8, and then 9 with this isn't enough to limit break straight away, unfortunately. We're risking running into counter magic from the Grixis player as well. There's Acabal Coffers, so plenty of mana to go with all the cards now. Like I keep saying, it's just a matter of time at this point. A Roaming Throne is going to trigger the Be'lakor, so we'll just have to try Teferi's Protection now. And yeah, I'm not going to hold up Batwing Broom because they can get us with the Be'lakor alone. We might need the extra life for the Toxic Deluge. This does mean that the Trouble in Pairs is going to phase out, so yeah, we're not going to get the card draw from that, unfortunately. Pay for the Rhystic Study tax with the Urborg mana. And if they've got counter magic here, then so be it. I'm glad to see an actual Be'lakor list that isn't just Guy Ruder, turn your library upside down. Quite an interesting one, this. Now it's noteworthy that Ugin is not going to be able to exile the Roaming Throne because it's colourless. But we could, with our commander in play, maybe go for Yawgmoth's Vile Offering and destroy this. Reanimate the Ugin and minus it down. Be handy if our opponent would overextend. 6 cards in hand and a Chromatic Lantern coming into play. He's still going to have plenty of mana after a board wipe is the problem. Another means of haste in Swiftfoot Boots, so yeah, he's got all these cost reducers, his haste enablers, he's really managed to get away from us here. We've already used our Austere Command and Farewell to get rid of the artifacts because we were so desperate to hold on to our own. So I really don't see what we can do here. I'm going to make my opponent take us out, but I don't know what we can do to win this one. Alright, a Gonjo can take out the Roaming Throne, but we'll probably have some means of Hexproof or Shroud on it. And this has Ward 2 for some reason. Yeah, Ward 2 on that, so it's going to cost us 7 mana to take it out with this, but that does reanimate an Ugin. But is Ugin of any use to us when they've got a bunch of hasty flyers? I wonder if Grateful Apparition can get us there eventually with the Ugin. We'll just have to play a Gonjo as a land. Take the lands as we get them. Then we've got 2 for Batwing Broom, 2 for Grateful Apparition, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we've got to pay the ward on that, which means we can't go for the Grateful Apparition. Why this has Ward 2 is anyone's guess. Good card though. And we do have a means of blocking at the moment, thankfully, so yeah, let's go after this thing. So this is going to trigger the Rhystic Study. Our opponent's down to 15 life at least. I mean, there's only so much you can play into the Be'lakor. Pay for the ward. And we can't pay for Rhystic Study. Gatewatch Beacon, we might as well say yes and add a loyalty counter to the Ugin, make it more difficult to get rid of. Ugin's about to exile this thing anyway. Do we go for the exile now or not? I think we need to wait a little bit. We can chump block. So yeah, if we go for the plus on this, we might be able to limit break it next turn. So let's just bolt our opponent, knock him down to 12. And then we're relying on Batwing Broom, which just so happens to deal some damage to our opponent as well, now that he's teetering around the same kind of life total as us. So we're pretty much just hoping that our opponent can't play enough demons to take us out with the Be'lakor trigger now, which is a big ask, but pretty much all we can hope for here. 6 cards in hand. I mean, he could easily have just recast the Be'lakor and swung in sideways at us anyway, so minusing down wouldn't have necessarily helped us. There's a Kothafed, so that's 6 damage to us. So it's just fingers crossed they have another demon, although I think they've still got the Rakshasa available to them, so yeah, I don't think there was ever anything we were going to do here really. If we'd gone for, yeah, they've got Obnixilis, see if we can draw in something relevant. I can't think of what we would get though. Just a Knight of the White Orchid, could have done with that about 11 turns ago. Ironically, that's our first access to Black Manor on a land. So that comes down, that's going to take us out straight away. Yeah, if we'd gone for the Triumphant Reckoning, we could have put lifelink with Ajani onto the Tomik, but I mean it's still only 2 life that we're gaining, and we would have just thrown it into the Be'lakor, so we'll draw a few more cards at the end of the game here. It's a good game to my opponent. I think we gave him a good game there, considering. Let's see what we were getting into. Doesn't look like the client's going to show us, unfortunately. But yeah, turned out to be a good game, I think, and is this a good enchantment or not? Are you convinced yet? Anyway, the bad luck with Tomik continues. I don't know what it is about this deck, but it doesn't seem to be functioning all that well, unfortunately. But we got to take out that beastly mono black player, which was cool, so hopefully you all enjoyed the game, and I will see you all in the next one. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.